All right, we're live on YouTube and we're just about to go live also on Facebook. And yes, we're live coming to you from the great British city of Glasgow. And sorry for the 3 or 4 minute delay there. Sorry for the delay. We were just trying to connect to YouTube via our new webcam, which we've got, which should raise the quality of the broadcast on YouTube. Sorry, folks coming in on Facebook. We were just, as we've been explaining there to the YouTube viewers, we were just getting the... So good to see people coming in now on Facebook and great to see people on YouTube. Folks, please send us your comments. Please send us your questions. Please tell us who you are and where you're coming from and where you're watching from, and we'll give you a shout out. We're not playing any intro music. The reason for that is because YouTube has got various algorithms to pick up music, and sometimes they'll just cut your feed if you're playing music that you're not, that they claim is copyrighted. Often we play music that's not copyrighted, but the YouTube computers don't necessarily pick those up. So folks, it's Saturday, it's Scotland, it's 1 p.m. and that means that we're back in original form, the legible, credible, inevitable storm, which is a force for good, coming to you live from our nerve centre here in the great British city of Glasgow. With me, your host, Alistair McConaughey. And we've got a packed programme of things to talk about this week. And I'm going to start with the kind of pretend COVID lockdown that's going on here in Glasgow. As you know, a few days ago, Nicola Sturgeon sent Glasgow back down in. She sent us back into lockdown, but it's a kind of pretend lockdown. It's not like a real lockdown. It's like you can't visit other people, but what you can do is you can't visit them in the houses, but you can visit them in a pub, for example, or you can visit them in a restaurant. So it's a kind of pretend and strange and confusing lockdown, which just adds to the overall sort of strangeness of what we've been experiencing in the last few months. Now, some people say that she didn't so-called lock down Glasgow as strongly as she locked down Aberdeen, because some people will say that Glasgow has an SNP-dominated council and she wanted to keep them happy. I don't know the truth of that. What I do know is that she will want to keep lockdown going for as long as possible, right through the November and December cold and flu season, right through the January and February flu season, right up, if she can, until the Scottish election on the 6th of May. Because she can't fail to lose. It puts her, as we always say, it puts her center stage as the figure of authority, as Mother Sturgeon, mother of the nation, speaking words of wisdom. Let it be SNP. She's going to continue that for as long as the media allow her to. And every sign suggests that the British Broadcasting Corporation is just going to let her stand on that podium that they're providing for her for as long as possible. And of course, a lot of the Scottish mainstream media is, if not directly in hock or dependent upon the Scottish government for funding, then they are sympathetic to her position. So they're not really going to challenge her on that. Good to see Christopher there. Thanks very much. Watching from Falkirk. Morwina, good to see you in again. Bill, good afternoon to you also. Alec watching from Cambuslang. And Saji is watching from Sri Lanka. That's wonderful. Good stuff. Christopher says he's sit back drinking tea from a Union Jack mug. Why not? That's the way to do it. Gilbert, afternoon from the Granite City. Is Aberdeen still in lockdown, Gilbert? I don't know offhand. Hey, good afternoon. Fire extinguishers at the ready. John gives us some thumbs up there. Gordon, hi, Ali, watching from Dunfermline. Fiona from Aberdeen, and Raymond sending some flags there. William watching from Loyalist Londonderry. Good to hear from you, William. Alan, keep it up from Falkirk. And Nelson from his London Unionist home. Wayne in Ashford in Kent. And Rona from Aberfoyle. Margaret from Durham City. Wonderful. Durham's a beautiful city. Agnes, from Denny. Chris, don't know what Chris is going on about. Philip from Staffordshire. Mercy. Debbie's saying she's getting noise interference. Okay. If that's a problem, we're not sure why that should be. We'll look into that, Debbie. Anybody else suffering noise interference, please tell us. That's something we want to look at. Whether it's the new webcam that we've got a top of the range webcam here, the industry standard. So maybe it's picking up too much noise or electronic noise. If anybody knows, please tell us. Morena says it was a bit at the beginning, but it's okay now. Anne's watching from Southampton, and Raymond from Knightswood, and Yaz from Wishaw. So many people coming in. It's absolutely wonderful. I'm going to go back. I'll give you all a shout out in time, but I'm going to go back to talking about Nicola Sturgeon. And I did mention there, I said that she was getting money from the Scottish media. What do I mean by that? Well, consider this. Okay, there's lots of small struggling newspapers. Well, you could basically all the mainstream newspapers in Scotland are struggling, but they get an income stream by publishing bulletins, whether in their newspaper or on their radio or TV adverts. They get the advertising revenue from the Scottish administration as a consequence of that. So all these COVID bulletins that the Scottish administration is sending out, they're paying the media owners of these newspapers and channels and radio stations and so on big money to screen all that stuff. So these mainstream media is kind of compromised in a way when they're looking at when they're listening to Nicola Sturgeon, because that's a source of funding for them if they play their cards right, and they don't want to play their cards wrong and lose that funding. So that's always an angle that you've got to consider when you're trying to explain why doesn't the media just go strongly against her point of view on this and break us out of this COVID lockdown. Why even like rebellious newspapers like the National, they're completely going along with this, completely going along with it. They're not doing let's stand out against the establishment and try a new angle, here. They're totally going along with the mainstream governmental narrative in a way that I've never seen in my life before. You would expect some newspapers would stand out against it. The only one that I've really seen standing out, or at least allowing people to complain about it, is the Daily Telegraph. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to be the only newspaper that's really allowing journalists to say this has to stop. So she's going to keep it going for as long as she possibly can, because it is in her interest to do so, to remain center stage. As somebody said in a newspaper this week, it was in the Daily Telegraph, said she has got an almost permanent television fixture now. An almost permanent television fixture. That's correct. She has full spectrum domination of the mainstream media. And of course, she's loving that. And why wouldn't she, given her position and given what she is trying to achieve? So what have we been up to? We had a street stall outside last week, which we deemed was the first weekend that it would be proper to do so. A very successful street stall. If the Facebook video is still working, please do tell me. Just wonder if something's happening there to it. Anyway, we had a very successful street stall. Lots of people coming up to us all the time in the centre of Glasgow. As always, a very real hunger to see the pro-UK position being articulated and even just being represented on the street, which is so important and which is what we're good at. And we have got a small team here in Glasgow who concentrate on the street stall. And I just want to say thank you very much to them for helping to deliver that. And we will be back out. We'll be back out very shortly. There's no question about that. Just as soon as things get back to normal again, which they will, we'll be back out. And thank you to everybody who came out last week. If you'd like to come out with us, then just drop us a message and we'll ensure to tell you the next time that we're out on the street. And if you'd like to do something like this in your own hometown, then please do just tell us, and we will we'll make sure that you get notified, and we'll invite you down to Glasgow to stand with us on one of our street stalls, so that you know exactly how it plays out and what to do and so on and so forth, so we can train you up on those things. And please do contact us if you like that idea of doing something like that in your own hometown. Jeff there from Cornwall, good to see you. Good to see you. Christopher, you're so right with the Mother Sturgeon line, how people fall for this and want to be patronized by her. Peter from Stoke-on-Trent. And James says, keep up the good work, watching from Cooper. Christina says that she can hear crackling on the line. Well, why should that be, I wonder? We're going to have to, we will look at this. It's obviously to do with the compatibility in our high-powered webcam and our laptop that's broadcasting it. Something to do with that, no doubt. Okay, the consensus is that there is a bit of crackling. I'm sorry, Chris, I don't really know what you're talking about on that. We don't need to answer that, but interesting question, all the best. Gary from County Antrim. And Helen from Harwich in Essex. And Gary from Littleborough. Craig giving us thumbs up. Sammy saying, keep it up, guys. Good, 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 good. And Raymond from Bangor in County Down. The Star of the County Down. That's a good song. Gordon says he's getting interference every day from Nicola Sturgeon on her BBC throne. I know what you mean. I know what you mean, Gordon. Margaret from Amersham in Bucks. Folks, in the news this week, something that's worth talking about because it sums up the craziness of the Scottish nationalists is that the GERS figures were announced. Now, prior to me getting interested in this, I thought the GERS figures were something to do with how Rangers were performing in the league. And then somebody goes, no, Alistair, it's not to do with football. It's to do with something called I'm going to have to look at this as well. It's called the SNP administration's General Expenditure and Revenue Scotland document, which is actually produced by the SNP administration. So they can't complain about it. And this found that in the year up to the beginning of the year, that the average person in Scotland received around £1,941. If you factored in the additional money that was spent in Scotland, it worked out at almost £2,000, which you could call a union dividend. And that's been the case for the last couple of years anyway, 2 or 3 years. There's always been what one might call a union dividend when all the figures are worked out. Now, of course, even though this is these are SNP figures, the fact is that most of their supporters don't want to accept that. And it's really interesting the way that they deal with these things is that when you show them that, they don't want to be grateful for that. And if you show them figures where it's working the other way, then they're angry about that. Because let's face it, there will be some years, and there will have been years in the past, when you work it out that there's more money going to the rest of the United Kingdom than may necessarily be coming to Scotland. You know, sometimes that's going to be the way that it works. Sometimes we'll be getting subsidized, and sometimes we'll subsidize the rest of the UK. And here's the thing, as pro-UK unionists, we don't mind that. That's the point of the union. The point of the union is to share our resources, as the phrase says, pooling and sharing of our resources. That's what we support as unionists. So yeah, some years you could work it out and we'll be getting more money coming in. Other years you can work it out and we'll actually be giving more money. Great. That's the way it should be. Years. And I wanted to know that when I was paying my tax, monies would be going to the rest of the United Kingdom, not just my little, that my tax money would come back to Glasgow. That's how we unionists think. That's how we unionists think. And I'm just going to send a message here to a colleague who, okay. So that's what we want to know. We believe as unionists that Scotland is big enough and it is rich enough and it is clever enough to share its resources with its family members throughout the United Kingdom. That's what we are about. That's what we're about as unionists. We're not against that. We're for that. Whereas the Scottish nationalists just get angry if they're told that they get money from the rest of the UK or if they're giving money away. They're angry either way. And there was a really good article in the Times by Kevin Haig who basically pointed this out. He said, even though these GERS figures had come in and shown the union dividend, he said, quote, with tiresome predictability, this makes no difference to committed separatists because apparently sharing with our neighbours is wrong. No matter which way the money flows, no matter which way the money flows. They get extra money, they're angry. They give money away, they're angry. And it's a kind of selfish, as he pointed out, it is in fact a selfish point of view. He said, quote, what they are in effect demanding is an abandonment of the solidarity and common citizenship upon which the UK's welfare state was built. If we believe that a citizen's access to healthcare, education and welfare should not be constrained by their region's tax generation. We should celebrate that taxes from across the UK fund Scotland's education and healthcare systems. Yes, we should celebrate it, and we do as unionists celebrate it, but the Scottish nationalists don't celebrate it. And one of them wrote a riposte to Kevin Haig. It wasn't actually a riposte as such. It was just a kind of one of the pot-boiling nonsense articles the next day in The National. And this person attempted to show that, in fact, Scots do care, that we are a sharing people, and that, you know, we do have solidarity with the rest of the United Kingdom and with the English in particular. And he made a point which struck me as the oddest point I have ever heard made in this regard, and a sad point, proof that Scotland shares and is a sharing people. Supporters of the union, quote, "know over the next few years the numbers of English migrants in Scotland and their children will be safer here." What an incredible comment on the situation in the country at the moment. He's saying we're clearly a sharing people because the English are going to be fleeing some of these cities in the coming years, and they're going to be coming to Scotland, and we're going to welcome them. I'm sure we will welcome them. But the fact that he would even go there and talk about the possibility of that, like what's politically incorrectly called white flight, the fact that he would talk about white flight and English people fleeing to Scotland was just such a weird thing. I thought such a weird thing that I had to put that aside, and I'll maybe make a separate file for that new argument for Scottish independence. But very, very unusual point, but had to be mentioned there, because he's obviously thinking along lines that some of us haven't really thought about yet. Karen, hi from Falkirk. Steve, hi from Bilston in Midlothian. Bugsy says, I completely agree that the standards in journalism have evaporated in the past decade or two. Yes, the newspapers are struggling now because of social media and people getting their news from other sources and from other people. Back when many of us were growing up, there was only 3 channels on the television and there was only a handful of newspapers, and those 3 channels and the handful of newspapers created the political debate that existed in the country. And now it's much more anarchic, which has its benefits, but also has its drawbacks as far as social stability is concerned, and especially also as far as these newspapers and their business model is concerned. That's for sure. Sheila says, hi from Wolverhampton. And Richard from Banbury. Yes, good stuff, good stuff. Thanks for the, Michael, keep up the good work. We certainly will. We certainly will. Alistair's watching from Fort William, named after King William. People are saying it's stopped now, the crackling. And maybe it's the distance that I am at from the microphone. We'll look into it anyway. Yeah, okay, so that was the JERS figures. What else has been going on? Yes. Rule Britannia. Britannia rule the waves. Britain never, never, never shall be slaves. Apparently that's an extremely controversial thing to point out, according to the British Broadcasting Corporation, again, although they've always been opposed to those sorts of songs. But the Proms is in lockdown also, but they are going to have a few singers singing it. But what's interesting, and what I want to just mention about that song before I move on to what's happening as far as our Twitter account is concerned, is the comments from people who opposed it were saying that it was an anachronistic song, which means a song that somehow its day has passed. Well, that struck me that these people must live in a very metropolitan borough, because if you come up to Scotland, Rule Britannia as a song is a living thing. It's a real thing. People sing it lots of times, sometimes at football matches, but we, especially at A Force for Good, we sing it or shout it more like at any of the Scottish nationalist marches when they're passing us. We play it on our PA system at the start, and then at quieter moments, we'll give them a rendition of Rule Britannia. And so it's like a living thing. And it's such a great chorus, which sums up the desire to be British, and indeed for unity. And so when I saw these commentators talking about how, oh, it's time has passed, and well, it's history, but we like singing about history, I'm like, no, it's a real thing today. It's a living document, and it's a living song right now. You know, it's not gone away. And so people who say it's anachronistic or living in the past, they don't live in Scotland. And they don't move in the circles that we pro-UK activists move in, because we can tell you it is a real thing. Right now, it's a living thing. And of course, we love it because it was written by the Scotsman James Thomson, and it was set to music by Thomas Arne, and it was first performed on the 1st of August, 1740. But it's still with us today, and thank goodness he wrote a thank goodness he wrote a verse which was easily sung, or rather a chorus which was easily sung, because the rest of the verses are pretty difficult to sing unless you are basically an opera singer. But he delivered a fantastic wee chorus for us, which is never going to go away, regardless of what the British Broadcasting Corporation might try to do. So that was the point about Rule Britannia. You know, where the fight for Britain is, there you will find Rule Britannia as a living thing. Okay? So no more of your, oh, it's anachronistic, it belongs in the past. No. Although we do have to say, and we're not the first person to point this out, that at the moment, Britons generally are kind of acting in a little bit of a slavish manner in the way that we've been dominated by our politicians. And so that is, that is a bit of a downer. So if we're going to sing the words, we've got to live the words as well, really. As Peter Hitchens said in the Mail Online, many people who claim to be exercised by this meekly submit to house arrest, compulsory masks, the suppression of Parliament, compulsory family separation, and a catalogue of outrages against our liberty that only a slavish mind would accept. 100%. And if you're not of a slavish mind, I know that there is a protest today, probably right now, actually, outside Holyrood against compulsory lockdown. And I believe there is one tomorrow in Glasgow Green in Glasgow. He did say something else pretty funny in this article. Where was it? Ah, yeah, he was going on. He was talking about COVID, and he was talking, as we've talked as well, about how many cases are there actually of this. Nobody seems to know properly. The young person dying from COVID is about as great as the chance of an eagle dropping a tortoise on your head and killing you. And to the Greek playwright Aeschylus, about 2,500 years ago, walking down the street with a mask, you might want to maybe carry a bin lid or something on top of your head, because you might be the one that the tortoise falls upon any day now, any day now. But moving on just to like the idea of Britain and our unity, we received a really nice and heartening letter yesterday from a person who was formerly a pro-SNP voter who's now come over to support the UK Union. And it was very heartening, and it was well written, and we put it on our Facebook site where you can read it. And I'll get to that in a moment. I'm just going to give some shout outs here. Ian in North Ayrshire, good to see you. Moira from Helensburgh, Sylvia from Northern Ireland, Roscoe from Dundee. Hope you're doing well, Roscoe. Thanks for helping us in the past. Stuart from South Wales. Anne from Oban, good stuff. Sylvia from North Devon. Dawn is watching from Minnesota. That's absolutely wonderful, Minnesota. I hope things are going well in Minnesota right now. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Dottie's saying these songs used to be taught in schools. Yeah, I remember. I mean, I went to a comprehensive school, and I know for a while we used to sing Land of Hope and Glory in assembly, which was fantastic. I mean, that was just in the south of Scotland. Anne says, good to see freedom of speech back. And Bill says, did you sort out the Twitter problem? Well, it's a good point just to get to talking about the Twitter problem, Bill. No, we have not sorted it out. The situation at the moment is that we've appealed 4 times. As many of you will know, they dropped us unceremoniously on the 17th of August. And they claimed that it was platform manipulation. That's it's something you can't really do unless you've got the computer systems to do it. It's the sort of thing that you do if you're a Russian hacker or a Chinese hacker. You're not somebody like a Force for Good that's just got a loyal Facebook and all. So we're totally unjustly removed. But what has really got our goat since then is we've applied 4 times, and not once has Twitter come back and gone, well, actually, mate, you were in the wrong because here, and here. Okay, so basically what happens is they can just drop you, and they are under no legal obligation whatsoever to do anything about that, and they can just kiss you goodbye and ignore you. Now, we've decided that we're going to continue to appeal, obviously. But this situation has told us that there's something seriously wrong with social media in the United Kingdom, because that should not be allowed. I can understand Twitter putting people off if you are an anonymous account, or if you have got very few followers, or of course, if you break their rules about speech. I understand them putting you off for those reasons. However, or if you're an account with no followers or very few followers, or you're clearly having a laugh, I can understand you having a laugh at Twitter's expense, you know, I can understand that. But if you are a mainstream organization that's a registered company, such as a Force for Good is, that has been on the platform for 8 years, that has got a following, almost all of which are people who are interested in that, because Facebook just has to look at our 30,000 followers and they'll find that there's very, very few false accounts following us. Everybody who follows us is a real person. That's another thing that should have told them that we're totally bona fide. So given that you can prove that one can prove that this is a real account, then there should be a process legally by which they are required to get back to you and explain it. There has to be a legal law that says if you're going to put somebody off Twitter, you need to engage with that person, providing that account meets the proper professional guidelines of a proper, open, transparent account, which our account did. Then you have to engage with them in an appeals process. And it should be 3 strikes and you're out. It shouldn't be 1 strike and bang, you're gone, and we're not going to talk to you ever again or tell you even why you did it. That's just a way of that particular social media company dominating the airwaves for its own particular brand of politics. Now, how is that done? Boris Johnson has got an 80-seat majority. Now, he needs to realize that Twitter are putting out and off its social media platform people generally from a small c conservative position. And unionism can be called a small c conservative position. So Twitter has an agenda to push off all these voices. And if they succeed in doing that, then Boris Johnson will not be re-elected again. I mean, Donald Trump is going to be struggling this year because in the past 4 years, Twitter has removed the major pro-Trump accounts, which helped him to get elected in 2016. So these guys need to understand that if they are to be re-elected, they have to sort out social media, not in a censorious way, but in a way that protects people who generally might speak for their particular values. And unionism is certainly one of those values that should not be pushed off Twitter. So Boris Johnson needs to get onto that. And even though Twitter is an international company, he can still make laws for their broadcasting in the United Kingdom. And within the United Kingdom, terms should be created which make it onerous for Twitter to simply offhandedly get rid of political voices, professional voices, voices that have got a proper following, voices that are open and transparent and that are subject to the law of the United Kingdom anyway. That basically, it's hard for them to abuse their power. And Boris needs to get on that, because if he doesn't get on that, he will lose a huge number of supporters, people who are speaking. Why is there no movement on that? There really needs to be movement, because if there's not in the next 3 years, then what you will find is that voice has been completely censored off the internet. And we're not making a case here specifically for the Conservative Party. We're simply pointing out the necessity to protect small c conservative voices on Twitter. And as well as all voices, of course, as well as all voices. And that these requirements. So that's what we want to say about Twitter. And we're going to push that now as a project. We're going to push that as a project. Now, going back to the letter that we received from the person who said that they were from our SNP and now are pro-UK, it was very interesting just to see, very, very heartening, as I say, and interesting to see the points that they were making. And you can read it on our Facebook page. One was simply being upset by Nicola Sturgeon's demeanour, by her apparent and the SNP's apparent power-mongering. Another was being upset by the very obvious anti-English and anti-British approaches that the Scottish nationalists often take. And the third, which really hit home for us, because we know it is a strong one, is just general appreciation and love for all of the United Kingdom and the social and cultural bonds which we enjoy here and which would be harmed and which are being harmed right now by the Scottish National Party. So these 3 things were the things that switched this SNP person to becoming pro-UK, and it's something that we're very grateful to hear, and I want to thank the person who wrote that. And if you are a person who was pro-SNP and now you're pro UK. Please do tell us about your journey from separation to unity. Please do tell us, and we can publicize that as well. And it got big engagement last night. It got big engagement on our page. David says the Triller app is also worth considering. I'll have a look at that, David. We'll have a look at that. I only heard about DLive last night. We're going to get the team to look at DLive to see how that works. We've heard, well, we heard last night that it was good. Christopher saying social media needs to be held accountable. Absolutely. Good. Paul says quite rightly that there is no oversight or regulations controlling social media. They are essentially a law unto themselves. John says, why don't you open another account under a new name? Well, we thought about that, John, but you know, we worked for 8 years to build 30,000 followers to become the biggest pro-UK unionist campaigning on Twitter by a long shot. And we don't really feel that we want to put all that effort in again just for, in, you know, a few months down the line, just to get zapped once more with no explanation, totally unjustly, because it's quite wearing. You know, it did hit us hard, because it was a blow, because it was one of our babies, you know, that we had created out of nothing to become a really successful thing. And it's when it got really successful, that's when it just went, they stopped it. You know, 24 hours before they took us off, a video of me talking in one of these street stalls had gone viral and had over 400,000 views. 24 hours later, Twitter took us off. So there's what seems to be happening is, if you get too big for your boots, they'll cut you down. That's what it looks like. I hope I'm wrong. I hope our appeals will continue to work. But we have thought about just starting again from zero, but goodness me, you know what I mean? Sylvia says from Lanarkshire, keep up the good work. Thank you, Sylvia. What you can do, though, to help us is to go to aforceforgood.uk/support, and we'll put that link up in the comments. And what you do there is you click on that, you can put in your name and your email, and we will be able to be in touch with you. We'll be able to, you'll be added automatically to our email update, which means that whatever they may try to do to us, we'll still be in contact with you via email. So really, everybody who supports us needs to, if you want to continue to support us, please do drop us your name and email, but you have to do it through the link aforceforgood.uk/support, and click on that, and there's a little thing comes up, and it automatically will add you to our email update. And we'd send that out fortnightly. The second thing you can do is, for the moment, you can definitely subscribe, please, to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button, the subscribe button, and also the bell, which will come up for notifications. We asked people to start subscribing to our YouTube channel a couple of weeks ago, and we've since had 250 new subscribers. So that's quite good. As you know, we want to reach 1,000. So please do subscribe to us on YouTube. That's another thing that you can do. And a third thing that you can do is download the Parler app, Parler, on your mobile phone on parler.com, which is an American site. It's not a substitute for Twitter. It's mainly American stuff, but it is complementary to Twitter for the moment. So please do support us by sending us your email and your name. Please do subscribe to YouTube and follow us on Parler. And of course, also buy our merchandise as well. We have a great in the middle of it. Big seller. People buy one for every member of the family. and also our little heart badge as well, which has got a force for good written through it. That's the classic one. And say if you're sending a birthday card to somebody or whatever, just pin that in there as well. And that goes down quite well. So please do. You'll find that in our shop. And if we put up the link to the shop and to these badges, please. And of course, if you're an activist, you also need things like Union Jack umbrellas and things like our 3x2 Union Jack flags. These are bespoke. We got these made specially for a force for good. And what that means is that if you need to do activism very quickly, then you've already got your flag. If it's raining, you've got your umbrella. You've already got your badges. You're all ready to go. And the days are coming when we're going to have to be ready to go at very short notice. So please do equip yourself out with all the unionist paraphernalia and requirements to be an activist. And we supply them all at our shop. John says, somebody must have complained about you. Yeah, the Scottish Nationalists complain about us all the time. They're always trying to get us removed for no reason whatsoever, other than the fact that we are a very successful, articulate voice, which they don't like to hear. Good, there's the sign up to keep in touch. That's been put up there in the link. Christopher's just added his details. And also he's set up some monthly financial support as well. You can go to aforceforgood.uk/union-supporters. And if we put that link up as well, and most of the people on there are donating £1.15 a week, which works out over 52 weeks as a £5 a month. And so that really does help. A £5 a month really does help if you can become a union supporter as well, to make, because we run very frugally, and we have a very small team, but we make big gains, and highly influential. Nelson says that AFFG have scared the pants off the social media establishment. I think so. Dottie has subscribed to the YouTube channel. Thank you very much, Dottie. Thank you. There's the union supporters link and the flag badge links right up there. Lovely. Thank you to the team for just firing them out so quickly. Thank you very much. Yeah. And of course, another thing that we, perfect bound, 56 pages, full color, and every page has got photographs, and it really helps to make the unionist case. And we've got the bug now for writing books, and we've got another book. We're going to make it a bigger book in the can, not quite in the can yet, but we're figuring it all out, and hopefully we might even have it in time for the beginning of next year. And it's going to be like a manual, an activist manual, and answering all the frequently asked questions and helping to give a script, as it were, to the activists on the street. So that'll be coming out as well, if we can get the funding for it, which is where you guys come in, buying the merchandise, becoming union supporters. And we thank you very much. We thank you very much for that. And, you know, we always say that we love our British history because the past informs the present, which creates the future. And that's why we get so annoyed, very annoyed, when people attack the British past, even in silly things like attacking Rule Britannia or statues of men and women who did no harm, you know, who were subject, like we all are, to the information available to them in their day and the social and cultural norms of their day as well. So we always try to esteem them as much as possible, and we always remember them and remember important dates in British history. And today, 5th of September, Douglas Bader passed away in 1982. And he was one of Britain's most famous fighter pilots because he didn't have any legs. He lost his legs before World War II, but when World War II broke out, he reapplied to the RAF and was able to join again, and credited with 20 aerial victories. On the 6th of September 2006, there was a very serious incident in Helmand province where a British paratrooper died and several were very injured and also lost legs. And that was made into a film called Kajaki, which is one of the few British films to be made about the Afghanistan conflict, or indeed any modern British conflict, actually, because we don't really have filmmakers who that's another cultural problem that Britain has suffered from for a long time, that we don't have filmmakers who create patriotic stuff, because the ones who are doing it don't have that mentality. So it seems, anyway. On the 7th of September this week, back in last year actually, we were in Perth. Our thin red line was standing up against the Scottish nationalists, and we counted them, very accurately, because we had a fantastic video you can see on our page, on our website, if we put up the link for that, actually, and we counted 3,160 of them exactly, and they claimed that there was 20,000 of them. Okay, and we made that film available to the media and everybody, and said, look, here it is, you can count them for yourself. Very easily counted. It took 35 minutes to pass, and there was 3,160 of them, not 20,000 claimed they had. So when that video went out, the Scottish nationalists went mad, because they're like, how can that be? There's 20,000, but it doesn't seem like that on that video. How is that then? And some of the silly explanations. One of them, the biggest one, was that I was on that march for 2 hours, and he said it lasted for 35 minutes. And that was the main complaint, how we had got it wrong. And these people didn't seem to realize that the difference, the time it takes for them to walk from A to B, okay, is not the time it takes for the march to pass a given point. So say the march is like that long, A to B, small group here, it takes them 2 hours to walk that distance. But for that small group passing a given point, it only takes 35 minutes. It's like if I was to walk from here to Edinburgh, that would take 15 hours. But I would be wrong to say that the march lasted for 15 hours. The march lasted for 1 second it took me to pass a given point, to pass the counting point. So they never ever got their heads around that. They still haven't got their heads around that. They'll say, like, you know, we were marching all day. How can you say it only took an hour and a half? This is what we're up against, folks. This is what we're up against. What was another random? Oh yeah, like, I don't see myself on that. I don't see myself on that march. You know, well, you didn't look hard enough. Look again. So yeah, and we'll be back out if the Scottish Nationalists are having another march, which they might do next year if Nicola Sturgeon hasn't confined us all to if we're not still all confined in lockdown. You know, you'd think the Scottish Nationalists would make a fuss of this as well, because they want to get out and they want to march. So how come they're not rebelling against this? I'll tell you why. It's because they love Mother Sturgeon and she's always right. And so they're just happy for her to maintain centre position, centre stage, have all the authority, and her daily British Broadcasting Corporation broadcast. They're happy for all of that. But it will end up biting them in the backside. Also on the 7th, British heroine Grace Darling passed away. Used to get taught about people like that at school. Nowadays, you can get taught about it by going to our Facebook page. On the 8th of September, HMS Prince of Wales, the aircraft carrier, was christened at a ceremony in Rosyth. And that's when we heard the Henry Longfellow poem, "Sail on, O ship of state, sail on, O Union, strong and great, for humanity with all its fears, with all its hopes for future years, is hanging breathless on thy fate." And it was Admiral Sir Philip Jones who gave that speech. And when I heard that, I said, bang, we're using that. We're using that. Sail on, O Union, strong and great. And as we always say, we, the men and women of a force for good, will stay the course for the Union we so love. On the 8th of September, all created the idea of the British Empire. Charles Pasley was born in Eskdale Muir, a place where many famous Scots are actually born for some reason. It's just a tiny wee village. Anyway, he is cited as being one of the main ideological thinkers behind the rise of the British Empire post the American Rebellion, which was called an essay on the military policy and institutions of the British Empire, which basically said, if you want an empire, you're going to have to get your act together, you're going to have to build up the navy, build up the army, and you're going to have to fight for it. And as a consequence, the British Empire grew. Civil War of the modern world, who pointed this out to us and who pointed out the fact that this Scotsman, Pasley, was the man who, quote, created the idea of the British Empire. We'll be writing about him this week as well, so check that out. On the 9th of September, the Queen became the longest ever reigning monarch in 2015, surpassing in length the reign of Queen Victoria. And on the 10th of September, in 2000, one of the lesser-known British Army actions, an unsung victory in many ways, and one of the boldest rescue missions in modern history, which was when the SAS rescued 6 soldiers of the Royal Irish Regiment and their Sierra Leone liaison officer, who were held in Sierra Leone by around 200 West Side boys, as the media called them. And the Royal Irish Regiment had been part of a UN peacekeeping force that had got strayed into the wrong territory, got captured by these gangsters, and immediately the SAS were on the scene, hiding in the trees, and a big rescue mission killed 25 of the so-called West Side boys, and unfortunately also killed Bombardier Brad Tinian of the SAS. And I tell you a fun fact about the West Side boys. They were not actually called the West Side boys. The West Side boys was the name that the British and Western media gave them because the West Side boys actually preferred to call themselves the West Side N-word. But the BBC, for some reason, thought it would be politically incorrect to constantly refer to them as the West Side N boys. So the British media changed their name from the West Side N's to the West Side Boys, thereby making them appear a lot more cuddly and friendly than they actually were, making them appear that they were, in fact, like a more than the actual psychopathic lunatics, drug-fueled killers that they actually were. Anyway, that's a fun wee fact about the West Side Boys. On the 10th of September, Gibraltar National Day, which was a day when Gibraltar voted to stay part of, to stay a British overseas territory. And you know, the Scottish Nationals will always say, oh, no country voted against its own independence. Yes, that article. We'll try to get that on that this week, listing all the United Kingdom's ambit. And of course, the next day, Friday, the 11th of September is 9/11. Folk, thank you very much for watching. Brian says, having a good laugh on the Scottish borders. Yeah, yeah. Good, good. We always talk, Barbara's watching from Rhodes in Greece. Rhodes, that must be named after Cecil Rhodes. Wonderful, wonderful. Leslie watching from Southend-on-Sea. Yeah, the anniversary of the Battle of Worcester, well, that was last week. That was the 3rd of September, when the Royalist side, as we said on our Facebook page, was largely composed of Scots who had come down to fight for Charles II. They lost. Charles II escaped. He hid, so the story goes, in an oak tree, which is the reason why many pubs are called the Royal Oak, because the oak tree sheltered the king. And of course, then Charles II was to come back in the Restoration. Liz from Wiltshire and Linda from Dundee. Yeah, Richard says the Dunkirk film 1917 and Darkest Hour. True. These quite good films. And Nellie's watching from Inverleithen. Carl's back in Glasgow. Later. He'll be back in Glasgow later. Fiona says, you're so brave standing against the SNP. Well, thanks, but many of us do so. Many of us do so, and every single one of us is committed to doing so, and is to be thanked. And it's easily done. If you want to get with the AFFG team, just do contact us. We're always ready, willing, and able to hear from you. We're Scotland's gallant crew, and we're going to show the world what we can do. As somebody once sang, that's the Scottish Football Team World Cup 1978. We're Scotland's gallant crew, and we're going to show the world what we can do. I think that's from there. Diana from Scunthorpe. Good to see. Good to see. Good to see. Malwina, thanks for that. Christopher says, how about making an ebook version of the wee book? We may do that. We may do that in time, but at the moment we're just shifting the hard copies. And you can get yours by going to aforceforgood.uk, go along the top and click on shop, and you'll see that there. Folks, I'm going to call this to an end. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for watching on YouTube. Please do subscribe on YouTube. Thank you for watching on Facebook. It just remains for me to say, God bless the United Kingdom and God save the Queen.